Welcome to the channel, everyone. We're so glad you're joining us today. Before we dive into this exciting story, I'd love to know, where are you watching from? Drop a comment below and let us know your location. And if you're new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notifications so you don't miss out on tomorrow's special story. We've got more incredible tales of courage, history, and unexpected twists coming your way, and I can't wait to share them with you. Now, sit back, relax, and enjoy the story. What happens when a champion punches a royal guard? Watch this. In the heart of London, where history blends seamlessly with the modern world, stands Thunder, a royal guard horse unlike any other. With a sleek black coat that gleams in the sunlight, Thunder is not just a symbol of tradition, but a living embodiment of discipline, strength, and unwavering loyalty. He has stood at Buckingham Palace for years, enduring countless ceremonies, always composed, always calm. His rider, Sergeant Chris Williams, sits tall in the saddle, his uniform perfectly pressed, his expression unreadable behind his mirrored sunglasses. Together, they form a picture of impeccable professionalism. For Thunder, standing still for hours on end is more than a routine. It's an art. Trained since the age of 3, he has learned to ignore the distractions that most would find overwhelming. The flashes from cameras, the chatter of onlookers, the loud cheers and gasps, none of it phases him. He remains motionless, a living statue, observing the world with quiet patience. Yet, today, something feels different. The crowd outside Buckingham Palace buzzes with excitement as tourists gather to witness the iconic changing of the guard ceremony. The atmosphere is electric, filled with curiosity and awe as people from all over the world snap photos of the grand building, its towering stone walls rising against the bright blue sky. The royal standard flutters gently above the round tower, signaling that the queen is in residence. But among all the tourists' excitement, all eyes are now drawn to one figure in particular: Thunder. In the midst of this, Jake Turner, a 35-year-old karate champion, strolls through the courtyard with his entourage, his championship belt slung over one shoulder, gleaming in the midday sun. With a confident swagger, he announces his arrival loudly, drawing the attention of those around him. His entourage, all wearing matching tracksuits emblazoned with the Turner Combat Academy logo, follow closely behind. Each of them moves with the same physical confidence, their presence commanding attention. Jake, however, is not here to admire the view. He's here to challenge what he sees as a weakness. As he approaches Thunder, he assesses the Royal Guard's stillness with disdain. He scoffs. "Is this what passes for security in England?" His voice carries across the courtyard, drawing more attention. He begins to circle Sergeant Chris Williams, scrutinizing his stance, making harsh comments about the guard's posture. Jake is convinced that his skills, owned through years of martial arts training, make him unstoppable. To him, the stillness of Sergeant Williams and Thunder is nothing more than an easy target. He's about to prove just how much he believes in his own abilities. Little does he know, this encounter will change everything. As Jake Turner circles Sergeant Chris Williams and his Royal Guard horse Thunder, he becomes more confident, more brazen. His earlier remarks about the guard's stance were just the beginning. Now Jake is preparing to demonstrate how easily he believes he could take down a Royal Guard. With his entourage filming, Jake stands before Sergeant Williams, his stance aggressive, mocking. He gestures dismissively at the guard's posture and begins to criticize every detail. Feet too close together, hands too occupied with ceremonial gear, weight unbalanced. The crowd around them shifts uneasily, sensing the growing tension. A family of tourists from Japan quickly ushers their children away, exchanging uneasy glances. But Jake doesn't seem to notice. His words cut through the air like a challenge, and his swagger only grows. "This is military theater, not real combat," he announces loudly, drawing more attention. "You're all just standing there looking impressive for the photos, not for real defense." His voice rings out, filling the courtyard, now alive with whispers and murmurs from the crowd. With a smirk, Jake squares off against Sergeant Williams, eyeing the still guard with a mix of disdain and superiority. "In my dojo, the first thing we teach is that stillness equals vulnerability. A fighter who doesn't move is a target waiting to be hit. And this?" He gestures at Thunder, who stands motionless, calm, and seemingly unaware of the challenge. This is a perfect example of what not to do. His entourage watches eagerly, nodding in agreement. They've seen Jake take down opponents in tournaments, and they have no doubt about his abilities. He drops into a perfect karate stance, demonstrating to the crowd how combat professionals are supposed to stand, alert, ready for anything. His body is coiled, every muscle ready for action. With precision, he performs a front kick, stopping just inches from Sergeant Williams's chest. The movement is fluid, sharp, a textbook display of martial arts skill. Jake's voice booms through the courtyard as he continues. In any real combat situation, this stance, he gestures again at Sergeant Williams, would get you killed in seconds. But Sergeant Williams doesn't react. He stands perfectly still, his gaze fixed ahead, his expression unreadable. The contrast between Jake's aggressive movements and the guard's stillness is stark, and it only heightens the tension in the air. Jake's confidence grows, his words more cutting. What he doesn't realize is that Sergeant Williams isn't just standing still, he's observing. And soon, Jake will find out just how wrong he is about what real combat readiness looks like. The crowd is now fully engrossed in the spectacle, eyes fixed on Jake Turner as he continues to taunt Sergeant Chris Williams. Jake's confidence is unwavering as he moves around the Royal Guard, showing off his martial arts prowess with every demonstration. But his words are getting louder, his mockery sharper. "This is what I'm talking about," Jake says, gesturing toward Sergeant Williams. "Look at this stance, completely impractical. No offense to you, but you wouldn't last 5 seconds in a real fight." His entourage, still filming, cheers him on, each of them nodding in agreement, convinced that Jake is proving a point that everyone around them is too blind to see. The tourists in the crowd shift uncomfortably. A few begin whispering to one another, others step back, sensing the escalating tension. The whispers grow louder. Jake's words are cutting through the air, but what he doesn't see is that the guard remains calm, unflinching, a silent presence. Sergeant Williams stands perfectly still, his eyes never leaving the horizon, his discipline clear. His training is not only in combat, but in this moment it's about control. Control over his movements, control over the situation, and control over his emotions. A staff member, dressed in a dark suit, approaches cautiously, his neutral expression a stark contrast to Jake's animated performance. "Sir," the staff member says, "I must ask you to maintain an appropriate distance from the Queen's Guard." Jake turns toward him with exaggerated surprise, as though he can't believe what he's hearing. "I'm conducting an educational demonstration here," he responds flippantly, flashing his championship medal. "I'm qualified to assess combat effectiveness." He waves the staff member off, his tone dismissive. But the staff member stands firm, repeating the request. "There are regulations regarding interaction with the guards." Jake raises his hands in mock surrender, but the smirk on his face shows no sign of backing down. "Fine, fine," he says, though the defiance remains in his voice. "I'll stay back, but my assessment stands." He turns to face the growing crowd again, addressing them as if this were a lecture rather than a confrontation. What they don't tell you in the tourist brochures is that this ceremonial stuff has nothing to do with actual fighting ability, he says. It's all tradition, no real combat training. His words hang in the air, challenging everyone watching. What he doesn't realize is that with every word, he's pushing things further. He's about to learn just how wrong he is, about to discover the true power of Sergeant Chris Williams, a guard who has seen far more than Jake's tournament victories. The atmosphere around Jake Turner has shifted. The crowd is tense, the murmurs growing louder. They're no longer just watching a demonstration. They're witnessing a spectacle, one that's starting to feel dangerously real. Jake, still confident and full of bravado, steps even closer to Sergeant Chris Williams, now less than a foot away. He eyes the guard's stance with renewed criticism, dismissing it as outdated and impractical for real combat. "Let me show you how it's done," Jake says, his voice booming across the courtyard. He drops into a perfect fighting stance, his body coiled like a spring, ready to unleash the kind of precision strike he's known for. With a practiced motion, he performs a textbook-perfect front kick aimed directly at Sergeant Williams's chest. But instead of the guard stepping back or flinching, something unexpected happens. Sergeant Williams doesn't budge. He doesn't move an inch. His eyes remain locked forward, unwavering, his posture as still as it's been since the moment Jake first began his mock demonstration. Jake's kick halts just inches from Sergeant Williams's chest, the force behind it enough to stir the air, but not enough to shake the guard. Jake's confidence wavers slightly, his body momentarily frozen in disbelief. This wasn't the reaction he expected. He's used to opponents recoiling, flinching, or at least showing signs of fear. But this is different. There's a calmness in Sergeant Williams's stillness, a certainty in his eyes that Jake can't quite place. Didn't even flinch, Jake mutters under his breath, his eyes narrowing as he circles the guard again. Fine, let's see how you handle this. He shifts his stance, preparing for another strike, but before he can move, the crowd grows silent. Sergeant Williams hasn't moved, hasn't even acknowledged the challenge. His discipline is unshakable. The tension in the air grows thicker, the crowd watching in silence as Jake throws punch after punch, each one stopped just short of the guard's body. The guard remains unmoving, his focus locked ahead, his expression unchanged. Jake's frustration is palpable. His breathing starts to quicken, his fists now clenched, the reality of the situation sinking in. He's out of his element. This isn't a competition, and he's not dealing with someone who cares about scoring points. And then, with the slightest shift, Sergeant Williams reacts. It's not an over-the-top movement, not a dramatic show of power, but something much more precise. Sergeant Williams steps forward with deadly accuracy, closing the gap between them in a flash. Before Jake even knows what's happening, he feels a sharp blow to his solar plexus, a strike so precise that it leaves him gasping for air, his chest unable to expand as the air is knocked out of him. The crowd goes silent. Jake stumbles backward, his face pale as he fights for breath. The world around him spins as the reality of his miscalculation hits him like a ton of bricks. He's no longer the confident champion. He's just another man gasping for air, his body crumpling under the weight of his own arrogance. Sergeant Williams doesn't say a word. He simply watches, standing in perfect readiness, his training clear. This is not a game, and Jake Turner has just learned the hardest lesson of all. There's more to fighting than just strength, speed, and style. The world seems to slow down for Jake Turner as the impact of Sergeant Chris Williams' strike sinks in. The force of the blow to his solar plexus leaves him breathless, gasping for air as he stumbles back. His chest tightens, his diaphragm spasms, and he collapses to one knee, clutching at his chest. His mind races, his championship confidence evaporating, replaced by the crushing realization that he's no longer in control. The crowd is eerily silent, watching in stunned disbelief as Jake struggles to breathe, his face turning pale, sweat beading on his forehead. The guard, Sergeant Williams, stands motionless, his expression unchanged, as if the strike had been nothing more than a routine action. Jake's hands tremble as he presses them against his chest, trying to force air into his lungs. The world spins, and for the first time, he feels the weight of his own arrogance. He had thought that his karate skills would easily overpower a royal guard, but he's learning the hard way that there's a difference between competitive fighting and real-world combat. The guard's calm, methodical response is a cold reminder that combat isn't about showmanship or points. It's about survival. As he gasps for air, Jake can hear Colonel James Harrington, the retired Royal Marines officer, speaking from the sidelines. What you're seeing here, people, is the difference between ceremony and capability. He steps forward, his voice steady and commanding as he addresses the stunned crowd. These guards are not just statues in uniform. They are trained soldiers, prepared for situations far more dangerous than a staged fight. Jake, still hunched over, finally manages to raise his head, his eyes filled with a mix of pain and dawning respect. He meets Sergeant Williams's gaze, and for the first time, he sees the truth behind the guard's stillness. It's not weakness, it's strength. It's not lack of movement, it's control. Sergeant Williams has not only incapacitated him in one move, but has done so with such precision and calm that Jake realizes he's been outclassed in ways he could never have imagined. The crowd, now fully understanding the depth of what has just happened, watches in silence. Colonel Harrington continues to explain to the onlookers that Sergeant Williams and his fellow guards are part of an elite military unit, not just ceremonial figures. They stand still because they are trained to handle real threats, not for photos, not for show. he says, his words clear and authoritative. Jake, still trying to recover, nods slowly, acknowledging his mistake. He had come here thinking he would teach a lesson, but in the end, it was Sergeant Williams who had delivered a humbling one. As the crowd disperses, Jake sits on the cold stones of the courtyard, still catching his breath. His entourage, once brimming with confidence, now stands awkwardly by, their earlier bravado shattered. They've all seen it now. True strength, true discipline. And it wasn't in the flash of a championship belt or the power of a tournament punch. It was in the quiet, unyielding discipline of a royal guard. Hey everyone, we hope you enjoyed today's intense story. Now I want to hear from you. What did you think of Jake Turner's bold challenge and the way Sergeant Chris Williams handled the situation? Have you ever underestimated someone based on appearances only to be proven wrong? Drop a comment below and let us know your thoughts. Did Jake learn his lesson, or was it just a case of arrogance meeting reality? Also, I'd love to know, what do you think makes someone truly tough? Physical strength or mental discipline? Sergeant Williams showed us what true control looks like, and it's something beyond what most people ever get to see. If you've ever had a moment where you realized there was more to strength than meets the eye, share it with us. Don't forget to like the video if you enjoyed the story, and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on more powerful stories like this one. We've got new content dropping tomorrow, and you won't want to miss it. Turn on notifications, and let's keep the conversation going. What did this story teach you about respect, discipline, and humility? I can't wait to read your comments.